Welcome to the next installment of our special USCCA broadcast with Eric Hung from Pew Pew Tactical. We've seen record growth in the number of new gun owners in the past month, and we're going to dive into the topics every gun owner should know about. Let's get started. All right, next logical steps for gun owners, Eric. You've bought your gun. You've made that first step. You understand that it's not as easy as everyone in the media has been making it out to be. But you finally got that thing. You've got it home, and maybe you've even made your first trip to the range. What do you do next now as you grow into this?
Yeah, I'd say just read a lot of stuff, watch a lot of YouTube videos, know how to clean and store your gun. And you don't need to completely break down everything, but at least know how to field strip. So basically that's just taking off the slide if it's a handgun, or the upper and lower receivers, and BCG for AR-15s. Just know basic things. It's still a piece of metal. It's still something mechanical. So you have to do a little bit of maintenance to them. I'd say that. Yeah. And then sort of just back to before, have a good amount of gear, belts, holsters, ammo. Keep those three at least of high quality. You can skimp a little bit on other things, or not. It's all good. And I would say also just train a lot, either online or offline. Definitely look into dry firing. So that is shooting at home without live ammo. So we're just working on that trigger finger, because in the end, that's what really puts rounds on target.
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that you said and you just glossed over, and I can tell you are a gun guy now at the deepest portions of this. You said BCG, and if there's anybody who's watching who doesn't know what a BCG is, that is the bolt carrier group inside your AR-15. So when you take it apart, that's the major portion of the action that comes out in your hands. And I can nerd out on this all day long now, because if you're using a gas impingement gun, that's going to be the really dirty part. But if you're using a piston gun, it stays pretty clean. And never mind. Well, read it on Eric's website. He'll tell you all about the stuff that's going on out there. So you mentioned dry fire, and I want to make sure that everybody in the world understands a dry fire is practicing with your firearm without using any ammunition. Okay, so you can do that in your home, folks, but you need to be extra safe when you do that. Double, triple check to make sure that there is no loaded round in your firearm or in the magazine. And I, in fact, tell people to move their ammunition outside of the room in which they're dry firing. I don't want any ammo in that room. And then there is probably 30 or 40 really good drills that you can use, dry fire, no ammo, that are guaranteed to improve your shooting. Eric, do you have a favorite dry fire drill that you'd like to use?
Oh, now I'm blanking. I think it's just finding a small thing in your room, and just getting your sights on target, focusing on the front sight, and then squeezing as slow as you can until the break or the click surprises you, and just hoping that front sight does not move at all. And then obviously there's other things you can get, dummy rounds to help you with training or failure drills, or you can get some laser doohickeys too, so you can see where you would have hit.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing a lot lately. I'm a big fan of the switch plate, aiming at the light switches around the room, or the outlets on the wall. And you're absolutely right, folks. Eric is right. Focus on your front sight. Your target should probably be a little bit blurry, because your eye can only focus on one thing at a time. But focus on your front sight. Put that front sight where it needs to go. And I love the way you describe trigger press, Eric. Press slowly till it surprises you. And if you do that, even just 10 times a day, you will improve your trigger press to the point that your shooting will rapidly improve when you get out there on the range. So, what are the top 5 things people should not be doing? Well, I don't know if it's 5, but if you have a list of things that people should not be doing with their firearm, what would it be, Eric?
I'd say overall, just don't be afraid to ask for help at the range or when you're with friends. If your gun's jammed, don't just wave it around, raise your hand, get the range officer to help you. No one's going to make fun of you for that. So don't worry. People usually love to help, especially on the range. I'd say don't immediately start trying to upgrade stuff. And I'm definitely guilty about this. So if your gun's not shooting straight, it's most likely you. So keep up with that dry firing. It's not the sights. It's almost never the sights.
Yeah.
And maybe other stuff. Yeah, like don't worry about what other people think about your guns and gear. They probably spent 10 times amount on whatever they have to look cool. So don't worry, especially in the beginning. You can worry about that later.
Mhm.
Another thing is definitely don't mix up the words magazine and clip, especially online. So magazines
Yeah.
are what holds ammo, goes into your firearm, while clips help load your magazine a little faster. So people will freak out. They know what you mean, but people will freak out,
Mhm.
especially online. And also know
Yeah.
that AR in the AR-15 does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite. So those are the small terminology things that just freak people out online. So it's just
Mhm.
easier if you learn it and get it straight.
Yeah, I'll give everybody a little bit of insight out there. Before I came to this job 8 years ago, I worked at a book publisher and we published gunsmithing books. And firearms folks are involved in this to the thousandths of an inch. I mean, that's how technically proficient they want to be. So, and of course, you guys know what goes on online. As soon as you make a mistake, everybody in the cyber world wants to correct you and show how smart they are. Don't get upset with people. Don't argue online about different things, But yeah, we do like it when you get things like clip and magazine and you use them correctly, and caliber and whether it's going to be a 40 Smith and Wesson or a 9 millimeter. It's never going to be a 40 millimeter. That's a grenade launcher. So anything
Yeah,
else
and
that
like,
people
and one more
should
thing.
pay attention to? Okay, go.
Yeah, I'd say one thing is just don't worry if you aren't a crack shot at the beginning. The people that you see that are doing really, really well in competitions or at the range, they have thousands and thousands of rounds downrange and probably tens of thousands of dry firing back at home. So just don't worry about that. Just get your training, get your safety up to spec. And speaking of training, if you look down, I hope it's down there.
Yeah.
There's a really cool offer from USCCA where you get a knife training USB with 50 hours of free online training. And I've tried it out, and it's really good. It's put me levels ahead, especially my competition shooting.
Well, thank you, and I really want to thank you for making note of that, Eric, because you guys might see me in some of those 50 hours of training out there. So we had a great time putting all of that stuff together. Let's move on and become really good buddies right now, Eric. What's the biggest mistake you ever made? I guess when you're just learning about guns, not the biggest mistake you've ever made with a gun. And I'll share mine with you right now so we get it off the table. I launched a 9 millimeter round through my mattress in my house in South Dakota out there one morning while I was gearing up and getting ready to head off to work. And that was the last time. That was more than 20 years ago, but that was the last time I had a negligent discharge, and it put the fear of God into me when that happened. But something you might have considered as a mistake when you jumped into the firearms community.
Okay. Yeah. Thankfully, mine wasn't an ND, a negligent discharge. I
Mhm.
think my thing was just getting a 1911 as a first gun. So
Mm.
it's a caveat. It's an awesome platform. I have like 5 of them now. I think it's my favorite platform, but I definitely wouldn't suggest it as a first gun for people. It's just
Mhm.
it's like driving a Ferrari compared to, I don't know, like a Toyota. You want something that just runs, that is very, very easy. Then as you move up, I'd say then get it. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for that,
Mhm.
but still love
Yeah.
1911s, but probably just not for a first gun.
Mhm. Yeah, and there's a lot of folks out there who swear that the 1911 is the only gun that you should ever use to defend yourself or something like that. I'll argue with those folks all day. I too like the 1911 platform; it's really cool. But remember, it's now more than 100 years old. It's nearly 110-year-old design, and in the interim, yep. The design of the 1911, John Browning did a wonderful job designing it in 1911, actually, earlier than that. And all the people who have come after and used all of those great elements that he put in there, we've made better guns since then. 1911 still works and it's still a good gun. But yeah, there are guns that are easier to use, easier to disassemble, certainly easier to clean, and might not be so finicky when you're out there. Shooting on the range. So your 1911 was your first handgun. Do you remember the specific make, model, and size? What was it?
Yeah, it was a Springfield loaded in stainless steel, and I got it just because it looked so cool, and I knew 1911s
Hmm.
from like video games and movies.
Yeah, yeah, and the Springfield loaded is a cool looking gun. So
Mhm.
good choice if that's what you're going for, something that's looking cool. Um, what about five most common mistakes? What sort of stuff
Hmm.
gets talked about on your site and in your emails and things like that? What should
Hmm.
people make note of so that they don't do it?
Okay. First off, I'd say probably choosing a gun for the wrong reasons. Maybe what I did simply because it was cool. But I think a bigger reason is like I'm small, so I should get a smaller gun. While I think it definitely helps to have as large a gun as you can handle. Just because if it's a small
Mhm.
gun, it's going to be very, very bad to shoot. It's going to be like a lot of recoil. It's going to flip. It's going to be hard.
Mhm.
So you see like the boyfriends that get their girlfriends like really small guns. I'd advise against that.
Yep.
Definitely try the gun out on the range if possible, just so you know if you like it. I'd say for handguns, it just really comes down to how it fits and feels in your hand more than anything else.
Mhm.
Like try them all out. And don't go super cheap on guns. There's definitely
Mhm.
some affordable guns out there that are quite good, so you can search for those. But don't go get something just because it was under $100 or something.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
otherwise, for when you're at the range, don't get distracted. Like always follow those four rules. You always see the people with a bunch of friends and they only have one firearm, and one person shooting, the other person's to his left or right talking to them, and then they'll turn with the firearm and muzzle their friend. So those are
Yeah.
one of the really scary, cringy moments I always see at the range. So just always keep that in mind, even when with your friends. Like have fun, but also keep safe. And that sort of
Mhm.
goes along with just really try to get proper training. Again, it's difficult now, but there's online solutions. You can read about stuff and watch a lot of videos. So go with
Mhm.
that. And I think I mentioned it before. Just try to avoid getting too little ammo or too few mags. I know that's a little difficult now as well, but
Mhm.
you'll thank me for it later.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think I've for the Glock 19, and maybe I'm letting the cat out of the bag. People tell me not to say how many guns I own, but three different Glock 19s, and I probably have 18 or 20 different magazines for that. Because when I go to the range, you know what, I can load up magazines at night while I'm watching TV or doing something else, and then have them ready for me when I get to the range to do some training and stuff like that. So. Let's talk about guns should be fun, and yeah, we sometimes make a mistake. I have a box full of like 50 different holsters for my everyday carry gun that they were either they didn't fit just right or they weren't comfortable or something like that. What would you consider to be one of your most I don't know, impractical purchases, or your funnest mistake that you've made with getting a firearm?
Okay, this one, it wasn't a mistake. We bought it knowing that it would be terrible because we saw an ad for it, but it was a bicep holster. So if you can imagine that, it's this elastic band you have on your bicep with your gun, and it just looked really really dumb. We made memes out of it, and we just decided to actually get it so we can make more funny pictures out of it. But it's terrible. There's no way to draw it. It'll fall out if you just start running. It's terrible, but it was still worth it for the
Yeah,
lulz.
yeah, just for the benefit of seeing what you don't want to use, Um, what about your overflowing gear drawer? Like, I let on that I probably own 50 different holsters. What sort of thing do you get out there and buy all the time, even though you don't absolutely need a new one?
So definitely hear you on the holsters, but otherwise, I'd say another mistake I made when I was just getting into ARs was buying the
Hmm.
cheapest handguards on, say, eBay and really, really cheap
Hmm.
optics. And those are just they're just not worth it. They're like overly
Hmm.
heavy. They don't stay on. They don't stay accurate, and you just might as well buy once, cry once. And now I think we're
Hmm.
entering like a new age of just gear that's like really good quality. That's not too expensive anymore, especially in the optics
Hmm.
realm. Like if you hit about $100, you're pretty much golden now.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of different optics coming out there. Folks are I don't know how the imports are going from China now, but they're importing some really good glass and hitting decent specs from stuff that was imported optics that were working really well. And I was recently at a writers event where they had a red dot scope for an AR-15 with a 50,000 hour battery life, so you could put the battery in on your birthday and leave that thing on all the time, and change it again on your birthday. And I was looking very closely at that because it's invariable that I will pick up something that has batteries in it and the batteries will be dead. I consider my flashlights just metallic tubes for holding dead batteries. That's typically what happens for me. So. What about how should people just enjoy being a gun owner? I know how I do it. I amass guns, and several years ago I made the vow never to sell another firearm. So I'm just purely in the acquisition stages at this point. But people who have now joined the ranks of the gun owners, what's one or two or three good ways that they can really enjoy what they're doing?
I think it's sort of just going with what feels right in terms of being, I don't know, quote unquote, a gun owner. If all you want is just one gun to protect yourself, protect your family, then that's great. Go out and practice with it. Make sure you get like good safe or whatever, depending on your house situation. Or you can go with all the way to, I think, you and I, where we get every single widget for the gun. We have multiple guns. We'll keep it like
Mm-hmm.
that. And we have overflowing gear drawers. And so it's just, yeah, like whatever works for you. If you want to get every single widget for your gun, go for it. As long as it's safe, like no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
If you're called a mall ninja, even better. Or
Yeah.
if you're not, you just want one or two guns, that's cool too. So
Yeah.
just whatever
Mm-hmm.
works.
What would be the craziest thing that you've seen? And I'm going to give you mine. And I know they're selling by the tens of thousands. I know the people who make them. It is the Picatinny rail pistol bayonet. It's a tiny little knife that affixes to the light rail on your pistol, and people buy them. I know they're never going to use them. What sort of things like that have you seen that just sort of made you chuckle? But maybe you ought to buy it just because it's fun.
Yeah, I'm chuckling because we have that in our, I think it was like the five most like terrible tactical things on Amazon for your gun. One of our
Yeah.
writers got it and started stabbing like wood. It actually stays on like okay. It's just really, it's
Yeah.
pretty funny. But otherwise, I'd have to say the testicles you add to your AR-15 that dangle there. It's
Uh
like
huh.
truck nuts, but not. So
Yeah.
there's that, and I know they both
Yeah.
sell well. So
Mhm. Yeah, and those
good
are
for
the
them.
things that yeah, they're out there. Yeah, somebody's making a living off of, testicles that you can hang off the fore end or buttstock of your AR-15. And people have asked me, AR-15, why do you just keep buying stuff? And I say, well, AR-15 is like Barbie for grown-ups. You can accessorize any way that you want on your AR-15. And I have one lower for which I have, let's just say, multiple different uppers, so that I can interchange and back and forth everything from what I would call a home defense or a patrol carbine, because I'm also a police officer, to a ultra accurate, super long range, long barrel, big scope, and I just pop the new upper on the lower and I'm ready to go. So I'm having a good time with that sort of stuff. Thank you for joining us on this special broadcast from the USCCA with Eric Hung from Pew Pew Tactical. This is an amazing time to be a gun owner in America. More people than ever before are exercising their Second Amendment rights for the first time. Next time, we're going to talk about the next steps you can take to become a more confident gun owner. We'll see you soon. Stay tuned.